Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Well, hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us Chad Peterson, who's the CEO of Peterson Acquisitions. Chad, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, so what are you acquiring? Tell us about your business. I know you're a business broker, but do you have any specific focus that you work in or specific industry? So that's kind of the first thing that pops into my mind. But give us, like the 30,000-foot view of what led you to start a business broker practice.
Well, the first answer is no, I don't work in any particular sector. I work in every imaginable type of business possible. So I sell any type of business that's out there. What led me to do this was really just more of a matter of my story, which is I've been self-employed my entire life, and I've sold countless businesses of my own, and I've never done anything else than being self-employed. So building and selling businesses my entire life and helping that of others, eventually it was just I was doing it for others, and I quit building my own businesses.
And then at that point, it's just like, okay, well, that was kind of the end of chapter 1. Let's see what chapter 2 brings in, huh?
Well, yeah, I just, back in 2008, I had a company that was worth $9-10 million, and I had built that mortgage company. I was a mortgage broker, and I built that mortgage company. I could have sold it for $9 million, and I didn't sell before the crash of '08, and I just learned the really hard lesson that, man, timing is everything. Timing is absolutely everything, and when you're doing well is the time to sell.
Yeah.
So, you don't wait until your ship is sinking to try to sell it. That's not how it works. You got to make sure it's nice and pretty and somebody wants to buy your boat. All too often, people call me with a sinking ship and say, help us, let's sell. And I'm like, man, I can't help you.
Yeah, because if you don't want it, neither does anyone else.
Exactly. If you're not making money and you're on the downhill slide here, I can't help you. So I learned a valuable lesson in '08 whenever I got hit hard by the market. And so a business was born and a passion was ignited inside me to never let anybody be in that position again to where they're doing well so they think they'll just keep it. Well, if you're doing well, that's the time to sell and move on to your next adventure.
I agree with that 1,000%. And I would wonder if you experience what is popping into my mind, which is this. You're not an order taker, whereas, someone calls you up and says, hey, I need to order 3 of your widgets. Please send them. And you're like, thank you for your business. Have a nice day. People are calling you when, like you said, the ship's kind of on the downward trend and you're like, oh, we got to do some patch-up work before we get going. So my question is, how do you start communicating with people when things are going well and start their mind thinking toward, maybe this is a time to sell, and that goes against their natural inclination because things are great. Why am I going to sell?
Yeah, the question is that I'm continually out there on podcasts and I'm letting people know the mentality they need to be in. The fact of the matter is that people get too emotionally gripped to their business. They get emotionally attached. One of the biggest rules of investing is don't get emotionally attached to your investments. And that's a quote of Warren Buffett, in fact. And simply put, when you hold on to your business too long, you lose the forest through the trees. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows that the first house they buy, their starter home, is not where they're going to live in long term. They're going to go in there, live in it for a couple of years, fix it up a little bit, and make a $20,000 or $30,000 profit. Well, it's just one of the things in the psychology of being self-employed. You don't have that same mentality whenever you build your business. You build it and you just want to hold on to it and you suffocate it. Well, more likely than not, somebody else could come in that business and they could build that business much greater. They could manage it much greater than what the original owner has. And it's that point of inflection where an owner has to do a gut check with themselves and decide if their passion is as high for this business as what it should be. And if it isn't, they need to get out of their own way and let somebody else come in and run the business. And to get somebody to be in that mentality, I don't know what the magic sauce is, but I'm always working on it. Trying to get somebody to understand that as your passion is waning, I will see it on the profit and loss. And if you're doing well, it's the time to sell. And most importantly, out of all of this, is whenever you sell, you have dry powder now. You have a lot of available cash to put down another business. It only takes 10% to buy a business. So let's just say you're making $200,000 a year. That's not a lot of money. And let's just say I sold your business for $600,000. Well, after all costs and everything, let's just say you walked with $540,000. Well, it only takes 10% to buy a business. So you could probably, more than likely, go buy a $3 million business or more that's paying you, almost $1 million a year for only 10% of the purchase price.
Yeah, 300. That means you choose something still to stick away in the bank.
Exactly, and who needs that much money liquid anyway? So make your money work for you.
Yeah.
If you have $250,000 after everything, you put your 10% down, and now you're making almost $1 million in a different business. But people can't see the forest through the trees; they only see 10 feet ahead of them. That's all they see. And what I need to do is get them past that point of understanding. And a lot of times people will call me, and let's just say they want $1 million for their business, and I'm like, hey, it's only worth 800. Well, I'm not going to sell it unless it's $1 million.
Yeah.
Well, why? If we could sell this and we could get you into a business that's paying you $1 million a year. So most people, 98% of people don't have the proper mentality when it comes to a business and when it's time to sell and how to use that money to go forward and to become massively successful by allowing their money to work for them.
Yeah, you bring up a really, really big point, which is like a self-awareness, self-assessment, gut check, all related to passion. Is this still my passion for this particular business? Now, don't misunderstand the passion for entrepreneurialism, right? Because that owner might go, I just could never see myself going to work for someone else. That's not what we're saying. We're saying, how about this business and this industry, this niche? Maybe you've kind of lost a little bit, so move on and then have your entrepreneurial desires satisfied with the next business. It's kind of like the phrase serial entrepreneur, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and you don't necessarily have to be a serial entrepreneur to understand the concept, though. I mean, if you, like you said, if your passion's waning, why stick around? Why be there? If you don't want to do it, you don't have to. And so if a person could just decide, let's just say you've done really well for the last 10 or 15 years and it's all been about money and whatever else, and the kids are grown and whatever else. Well, what if you want to get into a business that's more philanthropic? What if you want to get into a business that, for some emotional reason serves you better or something? In other words, it's not just being a businessman, spreadsheets, and profit and loss statements. A lot of people just change, their interests, their passions, their reasons, the seasons, it changes. And when you get too rigid and you hold on to your business because that rigidity and just being locked into your business because it's all you should know that you're at a dangerous point at that spot. And you need to get out of your own way and get with a broker that you can trust to get you to the next level. It's almost like this. What if back in 1975 you invested in a stock and that stock gave you 20% gain for the next 10 years? And anytime that you think about stocks, that's the only stock you want to invest in. That'd be pretty foolish, wouldn't it?
Yep.
Right? So
kind of putting the blinders on, huh?
Yeah, total blinders. And I tell you what, it's a psychological faux pas, and it's real. And I see it sometimes, I see it all the time. It's almost written into the entrepreneur or business owner's heart to be that way. And my biggest objective is to get them out of that because it's dangerous. Yeah.
So on your website, you say you're the hardest working business broker you'll ever meet. And when I hear a statement like that, that means that that's kind of being a comparison to something else. So that tells me, and I don't know your industry, but that tells me that there might possibly be some business brokers that maybe aren't as reliable as they should be, maybe aren't as hard as working for your behalf. So tell us a little bit about what hardest working business broker you'll ever meet does for your clients. What does that actually look like?
Well, okay, I'm 41 years old. I've been doing this for over 20 years. I've been self-employed my entire life. I've built and sold companies myself. I've done it for countless other people. Peterson Acquisitions was ranked the #1 business broker in the country. I've been given many awards and recognized by Inc., Forbes, Seeking Alpha, Blogger Local, all sorts of top 10 lists. My work has been recognized, and the fact is, it's not because I'm, it's not for any other reason that I'm just a hard worker and I'm intentional about what I'm doing. I've never had a failure. I've never had a failed deal. So if I've sold a business to a buyer, I can call both the buyer and the seller today, and they're both going to be happy.
Yeah.
Secondly, and I'm not trying to trounce on my competition, but I'm 41 years old. Most people that are brokers, they got a lot of gray hair. They're in their 60s. They might have owned a business. They might have been an executive somewhere. They might have been a VP somewhere. They might have been a fairly successful realtor or something of that nature. And they want to go do this for a living. Well, they don't have the energy. They don't have the gumption. They don't have the fortitude. They don't have the grit. They don't have the tenacity. I work 7 days a week, not because anybody makes me. Remember, I own my own company. I work 7 days a week because I absolutely love what I do. On a level of 1 to 10 of passion, I'm about a 25 of what I do. I love working with business owners. I love helping them get to a new level. I love putting millions of dollars in people's hands and then getting them into a better vehicle. So I outwork my competition, in short. Absolutely outwork them. They can't even compare to the work that I put in. I have, in my time, specific to your question, hardest working business broker. In my time, I have probably made 40,000 cold calls. And that's one-time calls. That doesn't mean the follow-up calls. That's one-time calls. 40,000, maybe 50,000 cold calls.
Wow.
I work 7 days a week. I have a CRM that is, keeps up with everything that I do. I have incredible follow-up. I've written a book called Swinging Doors, A Guide to Selling Your Business. And the bottom line is tenacity, hard work, perseverance, and knowledge. My knowledge is second to none. If you get a guy that is a broker who wants to act like he really knows what he's doing just because he might have sold a business, that's not the guy you want. You want the guy who's been in many, many battles of selling businesses because they know how to get the mouse to the cheese, so to speak.
It's interesting that I just had a conversation similar to your point this week with someone, and we were just talking about how human nature is these days, where people feel entitled. People don't go the extra mile. They barely even go the basic, level. So when someone does return a phone call on time, or return an email, or do just an adequate job, they almost look like a rock star. So when you can do what you're describing, it just puts your reputation through the roof, because your competitors are doing either the polar opposite or nowhere near. And so do you find when you're working with businesses initially, before they've engaged with you, that they are talking to other people and maybe they even comment and say, wow, this other company isn't even calling me back, or they're pushing me one way or the other? So do you find like even that authenticity and transparency is another factor in your dealings with clients?
I do. And to your point, I couldn't have said it any better, but I'll say it again. Just showing up anymore separates you from 99% of the competition. Just showing up.
Yeah, I know.
People don't show up. I don't know what's happened. I know that if you went back to the 1930s and the Great Depression, if it was cleaning up hog pens, and you put an ad out, said that come clean hog pens for $1 a day, you would have had 500 men show up just hoping to work, clean up after hogs. Now you give somebody an iPhone, you give somebody a computer connection, a phone to dial outbound, and all the tools in the world, including tools like this podcast, anything and everything that's out there available in the market to make a successful day. Google itself. I mean, can you imagine being back in the 30s and having 500 people show up just to clean after hogs, and you had to turn down 490 of them?
Yeah.
And nowadays, if you put an ad out and you said, hey, come work, and the potential for earnings is, anywhere from $60,000 to $200,000 a year, depending on how hard you work, they would just show up and want to know what kind of health insurance they get and
vacation
how much
time.
Vacation time. Yeah, how much vacation they get.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what's happened there. But I'm of the old school where I work, and I love it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's just that people are not doing what they don't like or love. I don't know if it's that, or they're just lazy, or a combination of both. I don't know, but I'm glad, because it's job security for me. All I have to do is show up like I do, and I get the business.
Yep, exactly. Forget everyone else. Let them be chasing their own tails. This is how I work, and it throws the spotlight on you. We've touched on a couple things about how businesses are kind of, they come to you and sometimes they're in a tailspin. Let's say that a business is considering maybe possibly selling. What are some things that they should be noticing or doing in their business now before even engaging with someone like yourself, so that they're in a good position to maybe make the whole process go smoother?
Well, the main thing really is to contact a trusted broker. Contact me. Go to petersonacquisitions.com. Contact me, and at least once a year, be looking at your business as to what it's worth.
Yeah.
Because what happens is they get too emotionally gripped to their business. They don't know what it's worth. And what they'll do, frankly, is they will sit there and they'll do this mental masturbation thing as to whether they should sell or not for years. Now, I don't care if you're selling a sports car or a sweater. If you're going to sell something, you need to know what it's worth.
Yeah.
And so many people go through this mental exercise of should I sell, should I not, and they don't even know what it's worth. And then what happens is they fall in my lap and they're like, hurry, help me sell, what's it worth? Business isn't going well. Well, it's not going well because your passion has gone away. You're not as excited about it. You've gotten into a comfort zone. You're lazy. You're not working it. And now you want me to sell. Well, if somebody were to have stayed in contact with me for the last 2 years, and I'm telling them what their business is worth, then I can get them into a selling position to where they get a good value for their business before their passion is completely sunk, and they can move on to their next adventure. So, but the short answer is just stay in touch with me so you can continually know what the value is.
And it sounds like that would do a lot, everything you just said, but one thing that I was popping into my mind is setting unrealistic expectations, because that business owner that has that number in their mind that ends up being incorrect, they now are setting the bar at that number, when in reality, if they had worked with you to get a more realistic number, that expectation is set the right way, and then they're not fighting against themselves with that perceived gap.
Yes, exactly. And I couldn't have said it better than you just did. I mean,
good thing we're recording this then, huh?
Yeah, well, I mean, think about it. The disparity in what people think it's worth and what it's really worth is so huge.
Yeah.
And getting past that is oftentimes tough. And so you're right. Reduce the shock factor by staying in touch with somebody so you know right where you stand. That's a great way to put that.
Well, Chad, let's wrap up with this. If someone is maybe thinking of selling or what their options are, the first step is to reach out and see what their business may be worth, to have that expectation set the right way. What's the best way for them to reach out and connect with you?
Well, they can just go to my website, www.petersonacquisitions.com. And if they contact me through there, I will give them, and they let me know that it was your podcast, I will send them a free copy of the book.
Excellent. Well, Chad, thank you so much for coming on. It's wonderful talking to you, and I really appreciate your approach to business.
Okay, thank you for having me, and I appreciate it all.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.